Have you ever heard of a war that completely changed how we live, yet most people can't even name it? A forgotten conflict that shaped modern medicine, politics, and the very nature of power itself. Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on a story lost to time. Welcome to NeoHistorica AI, where we uncover the lost stories that built our future. Today, we dive deep into the Crimean War, a brutal clash of empires that reshaped the map of Europe and quietly planted the seeds for the First World War. From the blood-soaked fields of Crimea to the cold halls of power, this is more than just a war story. It's a powerful lesson in ambition, politics, and the relentless march of progress. So buckle up, because history is about to get real. The fuse for the Crimean War was lit in 1853, a year when the old world order began to crack. On one side stood the mighty Russian Empire, and on the other, a strange and unlikely alliance. Great Britain, France, the Ottoman Empire, and even the small kingdom of Sardinia. On the surface, it all started over religion. A squabble about who should protect the Christian holy sites in Ottoman-controlled Palestine. But as is so often the case in history, the real story was simmering just beneath the surface. This was a raw, unapologetic power struggle for the future of Europe. Russia, led by the ambitious Tsar Nicholas I, had its eyes on a grand prize, control over the Balkans, and ultimately, the crown jewel of the Ottoman Empire, Constantinople. The Tsar styled himself as the great protector of Orthodox Christians living under Ottoman rule, using faith as a justification for expansion. Meanwhile, in France, Napoleon III, nephew of the famous Bonaparte, was desperate to restore his nation's glory and influence. He positioned himself as the defender of Catholicism, directly challenging Russia's claims. It was a collision of two colossal egos, with an entire empire caught in the middle. To flex his muscles and challenge the Tsar, Napoleon III made a bold move. He sent French warships into the Black Sea, a direct provocation. Tsar Nicholas didn't just stand by. He responded with a chilling ultimatum to the Ottoman Sultan. He demanded control over the Orthodox Christian populations within the Ottoman Empire, a move that would have effectively made the Sultan a puppet of Russia. When the Ottomans, backed by British and French assurances, refused this demand, Russia's patience ran out. Russian troops marched into the Ottoman territories of Moldavia and Wallachia, which are now part of modern-day Romania. The die was cast. In October 1853, the Ottoman Empire officially declared war on Russia. The first major clash of the war was the Battle of Oltenitsa, where, against all odds, the Ottoman forces managed to score a rare and surprising victory against the Russians. It was a brief moment of triumph, a David versus Goliath story that gave the Ottomans a surge of confidence. But Russia's response was swift and devastating. At the port of Sinope on the Black Sea, the Russian Navy cornered and annihilated an Ottoman fleet. This wasn't just a victory, it was a massacre. The Battle of Sinope became infamous as the first major naval battle where explosive shell cannons were used, and the wooden Ottoman ships were turned into splinters and ash. The news of the massacre of Sinope sent shockwaves across Europe. The sheer brutality of the attack horrified the public in Britain and France. Newspapers ran sensational stories, painting the Russians as barbaric aggressors and the Ottomans as helpless victims. Public opinion turned ferociously against Russia, and politicians felt the pressure to act. For Britain and France, it was no longer just about influence. It was about stopping Russia from completely dominating the region and upsetting the delicate balance of power. They could not and would not stand by and watch the Ottoman Empire collapse. In the spring of 1854, Britain and France officially declared war on Russia, turning a regional conflict into a full-blown European war. With the major powers of Europe now involved, the Allies needed a decisive plan to strike at the heart of Russian power in the region. They decided on a bold, high-stakes gamble, an amphibious invasion of the Crimean Peninsula itself, with the primary goal of capturing Russia's heavily fortified naval base at Sevastopol. This was an incredibly ambitious plan, but the leadership on the Allied side was, to put it mildly, a disaster. The British commander, Lord Raglan, and his French counterpart, Marshal Saint-Arnaud, were old, cautious, and plagued by indecision. They had no clear strategy, no solid intelligence, and shockingly, they hadn't even chosen a landing site before setting sail. They finally settled on an open, undefended beach about 30 miles north of Sevastopol. It was a ridiculously risky move that left their entire invasion force completely exposed. They were sitting ducks, vulnerable to a swift Russian counterattack that could have ended the invasion before it even began. But luck was on their side. The Russian commander in Crimea, Prince Menshikov, was just as incompetent. He had ample time and opportunity to gather his forces and crush the Allies as they struggled ashore. But he hesitated. He underestimated his enemy and missed his golden chance to drive the invaders back into the sea. This critical failure allowed the Allied forces to land, organize, and begin their march south toward Sevastopol. The two armies finally collided at the Battle of the Alma. The Russians had taken up a strong defensive position on the high ground, but the Allied troops, despite suffering heavy casualties, showed incredible courage. They charged uphill, breaking through the Russian lines and forcing Prince Menshikov into a chaotic retreat back toward Sevastopol. The Allies had won their first major land battle, but it came at a high cost, with over 3,000 men lost. By late September 1854, the stage was set for the main event, the siege of Sevastopol. The Allies surrounded the city and began what they hoped would be a quick campaign. Instead, it turned into a grueling 11-month ordeal. The siege became a symbol of the war's immense suffering, marked by brutal trench warfare, rampant disease, and catastrophic mismanagement on both sides. Yet, amidst the horror, moments of incredible heroism shone through. It was here, in the mud and blood of the Crimean trenches, that the future of warfare was being forged. For the first time, railways were used to transport supplies and ammunition directly to the front lines. The electric telegraph allowed for near-instant communication between the battlefield and the capitals back in London and Paris. And in the squalid, overcrowded hospitals, a determined English nurse named Florence Nightingale, along with a team of volunteers, began a revolution. By demanding clean conditions, proper sanitation, and compassionate care, she drastically reduced the death rate and laid the foundation for modern nursing. She became known as the Lady with the Lamp, a beacon of hope in a very dark place. The Crimean War wasn't just a contest for territory. It was a painful but necessary catalyst for transformation. It brutally exposed the corruption, incompetence, and outdated practices of the old European armies. It revealed the horrifying human cost of imperial ambition, broadcast to the public for the first time by war correspondents and photographers. Although the Allies eventually captured Sevastopol and claimed victory in 1856 with the Treaty of Paris, the real outcomes were far more profound. The war hastened the slow decline of the Ottoman Empire, shattered the illusion of Russian invincibility, and marked the dawn of a new, terrifying era of industrial age warfare. From the ashes of Crimea rose lessons that would shape the next century, lessons about power, pride, and the often brutal price of progress. The world may have largely forgotten the name of this war, but its impact is still felt today. Here on NeoHistorica AI, we believe in remembering the moments that truly made history and listening to the truths they still whisper to us. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us as we step deeper into the Neoverse of history. We have so many more lost stories to share. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.